Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Buck Stops Here. I'm Catherine Murray. Well, with markets at record highs and an economic recovery underway, we are seeing a very robust issuance market, meaning more and more companies in Canada and the United States are issuing stock, debt, and going public through IPOs. I thought it would be a good time to get an in-depth perspective on the state of the capital markets, which sectors are hot and growing. Josh Schmitt joins us now. He is the president and CEO of the NEO Exchange. Josh, good to be able to catch up with you. There's a lot to discuss, so thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure to be with you again, Catherine. It has been far too long.
Yes, it has been, and next time maybe in person, in studio. So we're going to make that happen. It's happening, and that actually dovetails nicely into the conversation we're having today. As head of a capital market, well, head of an exchange which represents the capital markets, give us your sense in terms of what you're seeing on the economy right now, and if we're really seeing an economic recovery.
Oh, definitely. I think that the market, well, the economy overall is definitely recovering. You have to look at some of the core indicators. Think about GDP. Think about employment. I think all those figures are pointing in the right direction. You have lots of uncertainty still in the market. You see sometimes volatility in some of those indicators, and I think that we are still facing uncertainty with COVID, but I definitely see the end of the tunnel. But you see some resurgence. Europe, for the moment, again is showing a lot of resurgence from that perspective. You have the entire inflation specter that is out there, and that gets people a little bit nervous. But I think overall it is happening, and I think we have a great period in my eyes of growth ahead of us, because I'm also confident that some of those concerns we will be able to manage them, and I've got a lot of confidence in how the central banks will act and react to for example the inflation concern.
Yeah, what do you mean by that? You think they're gonna manage this process properly?
That is really what I think, and you see that they are extremely cautious. They signal well ahead of time, the types of initiatives that they want to take, so that the market can price it in. Like you're not going to see in my eyes anything that is going to surprise the market, or that is going to suddenly create fear in the market. I think they are very, very conscious about how important their role is going to be in the months and a couple of years to come. And I'm confident about that. But uncertainty is there. There's other factors also. Let's just mention a few things, like what China is doing, for example, in stepping into certain sectors in the technology sector. That creates fear and uncertainty. The issues that they have been are facing in the real estate sector. So there's many pieces out there, moving pieces out there, and the one thing that I will also say, that is, while I'm confident about recovery, while I'm confident about growth, I also think we'll be facing a period of high volatility. So it's not going to be steady she goes. It's going to be up and down, but in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. And it's really, I think, important, and I love having this longer format show to be able to describe and for our viewers to understand why the strength of the capital markets, which is what the NEO Exchange encompasses or is representative of to a large degree. It's so important that we have a strong capital markets, because it allows companies to issue stock, to raise funds, to raise money, so that they can go out and grow their business and hire and help to expand the economy. So it's important to hear from your perspective that you've got the confidence, which then hopefully leads to also CEOs. Your view would be somewhat representative of also CEOs having confidence that we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and you see that, like, again, take a step back and look at at the markets, look at how the markets are performing, and this time not from a pricing perspective, but think about it from a offerings perspective, whether it is primary offerings. You mentioned IPOs, and there's many other ways to go public, as you know, in Canada or abroad for that matter. But there's a lot of capital being raised. We see a lot of capital being raised in secondary offerings through, and it can be through a multitude of vehicles. It can be stock. It can be debt.
Okay, we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back. And we are back with Jos Schmitt. He is the CEO and president of the NEO Exchange. Jos, I just want to pick up one more point here in terms of the confidence that you're seeing in the capital markets from CEOs wanting to raise stock or debt issuance. Give us a little bit more granularity in terms of what that looks like today versus a year ago, or even pre-COVID.
Yeah, what I would probably say about that is that we have seen a period of intense activity that started probably, if I would put my finger on that, probably 6 months into COVID. So there was that 6-month period where everyone was trying to figure out what's happening and what does this mean. And I would probably say, as from September last year, we have seen a market that has been accelerating, and zooming in on many of the innovation economy types of companies. That is where I see a lot happening for the moment. And I would say, if you look at COVID, it has somewhere a silver lining in the sense that I think it accelerated a lot of developments and adoption of new technologies, of new ways of doing things. And those companies who have been focusing on that, I think, have been very successful in raising capital. And if I would give you a couple of sectors that I think are definitely standing out, I see a lot happening in technology and qualifying it as fintech, qualifying it as clean tech, qualifying it as biotech. I also see lots happening now, which is maybe not directly linked to COVID, but I see a lot happening in the entire climate transition space. So you can tie that a bit back to clean tech, but you can tie it back, of course, to the entire discussion and debate that's taking place globally about we need to address climate change. COP26 is a perfect example of how finally we start to get aware. I see lots of developments around carbon credits. Very interesting vehicle, of course, to help managing pollution, or GHGs as they call it, and to take us towards a net zero carbon environment. And then other areas again, and it all ties a little bit back again there. That is, I see lots of developments around critical minerals. Think about manganese, think about nickel, molybdenum. Think about all those minerals again that are going to be important to fuel electric vehicles, that are going to be important to make things as simple as the production of steel less impactful on climate. So lots of activities in that space, and continue maybe in some other areas. The gaming sector, I think that is probably more linked to COVID. We see a lot happening in that space. Technologies like the one we're using now, allowing interactions in a much more virtual world. So the entire virtual world is a big area of development, just to name a few.
Yeah,
we see excitement also in the more classical. Think about oil and gas. I think that is maybe driven more by circumstances, supply issues, OPEC plus, not really unlocking production. I think that is more temporary, and I think on the longer term, areas to be very, very cautious about.
And we only have about a minute in this segment, but I want to get your take in terms of when you say we're seeing, just describe as, President and CEO of the Neo Exchange, what that actually means. You're seeing companies come public, they're coming to you for advice to raise funds. What does that look like?
Yep, I would say the market now is red hot. It's absolutely exceptional. You also asked me the question earlier: how is it versus pre-COVID? Well, it's much more active than pre-COVID, and we are in a good spot, by the way, which is interesting, being a fairly young stock exchange. So we put our focus and our bets on that innovation economy. So we see a lot of those companies coming to us. And what do they come with? They come with sometimes ask for advice and recommendation on how to approach it. Because again, as I said, you got multiple models on how you can go public, and also help them with making sure that when you go public, you are ready for it. Because that's always one of my big concerns. Like, don't go public too early.
All right, Joss, I do want to pick it up in terms of, what you are seeing with respect to companies coming to you and the Neo Exchange looking for advice in terms of whether or not now's the right time to go public, and in what format. There's a lot behind the scenes that goes on for companies to become publicly traded vehicles, and for CEOs who've never done it before. It's so key and critical that they actually get it right and they get the right advice. This comes from somebody who, spent 14, 15 years on Wall Street at Goldman and Deutsche Bank doing, 12 IPOs a week. So with that said, bring me forward to 2021 in terms of what kind of advice you're giving and the way to be thinking about this for any small companies who's looking.
I think when you look at companies that are considering the go public options, you see them at multiple stages in their life cycle and in their journey. You have companies that come in with meaningful market cap, with very relevant capital markets experience and advisory teams around them, and they usually know what to do. We still stress upon them, the importance to pay attention to investor communication. It's something that people always need to be very careful about. It is not such a thing as I go public and now my stock is going to be extremely liquid and everything is going to be fine. No, you need to be extremely well prepared for that. It's funny, we are the only exchange that in our requirements put a requirement around an investor relations budget, and that is not because we want to make their life difficult, but it's just to make them realize how important it is to properly communicate. Then you have companies with less experience, still are at the right spot in their life cycle, but don't have all the advice around them that they need. Well, we will walk them through what makes a public listing successful, and that goes from identifying the right partners to work with from a liquidity provision, identifying the right partners to work with from an investor communication perspective, thinking about your three segments. You got the institutional, you got the small and mid-size buy-side players, family offices, you got financial advisors. And then your third segment, retail, you need to touch them all, and you need to touch them in different ways with different strategies. And all of that needs to be integrated within a well-orchestrated communication plan. And what I always tell them also, and it's something, I'll be honest with you, it drives me crazy when I see the opposite happening, that is, be factual. Say the things the way they are. I'm still very unhappy about all the pump and dump I see in the markets, because that is very bad for our capital markets overall, and something that we, of course, on our exchange will not support. But the kinds of companies that list with us typically would not do it, but that noise is out there. And then, other things that we talk with them about is how do you look at investors outside of Canada? How do you reach them? What steps you need to take to make sure that there is easy access? Canadian exchanges are not necessarily integrated everywhere. A good example is the discount channels in the US, whether it is NEO or the TSX. They don't get directly data from Canadian exchanges, but if you put the right strategy in place and you leverage some solutions in the US, then that happens. We talk about what is the right time to look at a dual listing. Should you dual list immediately, or should you wait?
What do you think on that? What do you think on that dual listing?
I think the good thing with us is we always think from the perspective of what is in the best interest of the issuer or the investor. But here we're talking about the issuer. And I think that some exchanges in Canada are very defensive. They don't want that to happen. They see activity going away. We have exactly the opposite view. Like I think that when you're ready, of course you should look at listing somewhere else, because you're going to create proximity with the investors interested in your company. You give them the opportunity to participate to a raise locally. You create more liquidity in your stock, but you do it when you reach a sufficient level of liquidity here in Canada. Like you don't want to dual list on the London Stock Exchange, or you don't want to dual list on Nasdaq or NYSE if you have not established your liquidity, if you have not established the maturity of your organization. And we look really at that evolution of the company and liquidity before you take that step. We talk with them about market data and how you can optimize that. So lots of things that we give them advice on.
Okay, we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Jess, I do want to dig into a little bit more the hot areas of the market and kind of some companies that are really interesting on that front. We'll be right back. Joss, I want to dig in a little bit further in terms of some of the more interesting, innovative areas of the market, which of course represents the economy, focused on fintech as well as crypto. And, I think it's important for people to understand that, when companies go public, the shares are often only offered to institutions. And so a lot of us viewers and retail clients don't even know that these companies are becoming publicly traded vehicles. That's why I kind of want to know about a couple of them. So talk to us about maybe a crypto or a fintech company that's gone public lately.
Yeah, I was just looking to my left, so apologies for that when you started this section, because I was looking at the market. I was looking at what's going on, and for the moment where we see a lot of excitement and activity is in the entire decentralized finance space. To mention one, like a number of companies that are listed with us. Think about tokens, think about DeFi technologies, think about WonderFi, think about EtherCap. They're doing extremely well, and I think that we are facing here, really the emergence and the growth of decentralized finance. We have been talking about it for God knows how long, and it takes time, but it is unlocking. If you look at the assets now in DeFi protocols, it has been multiplied by 5-7 in the last year, and it's not at the level, of course, of what you see in a Bitcoin, but there's clearly now an understanding and an acknowledgement that this new financial industry will come, and some areas will go faster than others. I think you see it definitely in areas like yield generation. You can see it in remittance. You can see it in what I would maybe define as the more simple, less integrated use cases. And when I say integrated, that is integrated within the current ecosystem. But you will also see it happen, with other services. I can see it happen in the world of wealth management. I can see it happen in the world of stock exchanges.
What's an example of that, Joss, in the sense that DeFi, decentralized finance? What's an interesting company that is doing something that's non-crypto, that's almost service-oriented, especially when you say you could see it in the asset management business? What would be an example? Maybe it's not here yet. I don't know.
No, I think they are there, and they are definitely coming out. I think one that I would immediately think about is WonderFi. What do they do? they focus on two areas. On the one side, they are developing a solution that is really going to make, and that's a bit answering your question about the retail investor, that's really going to make those DeFi protocols easily accessible for every retail investor. Let's be honest, it's still somewhere a little bit of world that is limited to the very few. And I think solutions that are going to give access to the Uniswaps of this world and the Polkas of this world, and just name it, and do it in a way that also comes with education and understanding of what you do. I think that is very interesting. And then
Josh,
they also
sorry, what's the company name again? I couldn't quite hear it.
WonderFi. WonderFi is the company.
Okay. What's the ticker?
WonderFi.
WonderFi.
Let me have a look.
Okay, don't worry. WonderFi. I'll look it up.
Yeah, WNDR, and it's WonderFi Technologies.
Okay.
But I could say the same. And then let me continue further on what they're doing. And then they're also investing in infrastructure that will enable some of those applications and those services that I mentioned earlier.
Okay.
Another good example is, I got to give my good friend Sam Saif and his team a lot of credit. Ether Capital, I'm sure you remember that name.
Mm-hmm.
Who was one of the pioneers in this space, and very early made a very strong statement about Ether, because many of those protocols are Ether based.
Okay.
And who is doing the same types of things that you see WonderFi doing. And I can mention more. DeFi Technologies, I mentioned tokens.com.
Joss, we have to leave it there. But we got a lot of good information for our viewers and a few good ideas. So we'll have you back. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be with you, Catherine. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you soon. Thank you so much for watching. We'll have more with Joss Schmitt next time and talk about carbon credits. That does it for me. I'm Catherine Murray.